Mm. Imagine this. You resign from your place of work respectfully, professionally, giving the right and appropriate notice period. But instead of you to get a handshake from your boss or a leaving though party celebrating you and telling you goodbye, your boss walks you out as though you're sort of a criminal. Hmm. I saw this write up online and my heart sank. My heart sank because I'm just saying this is how trust and relationship breaks because of emotion. Because I don't know why you would walk out an employee or an ex-employee was probably just an ex-employee some few minutes ago like they are some sort of a criminal just because they handed in their resignation. Let's look at the story. Okay, according to this individual, they've been working in this organization for about 4 months. And from the very beginning, they knew that it was a toxic environment, but they decided to just hold their front and continue to go on. But they got to a time that they just felt enough is enough and they handed in their notice. When they handed in their notice the first time, they gave their appropriate notice period, and according to them, their notice period was 2 weeks. They gave that, and the employer asked them to stay back. The employer asked them to stay, they thought about it, and they just decided that okay, things could improve. They decided to stay. Some weeks later, they just felt the toxicity was just, not improving. Things had heightened, and they then decided to resign again. Now, this individual handed in their resignation letter the second time, again, respectfully, professionally, and gave another 2 weeks' notice. When they did, what happened next will shock you because it shocked me. When they handed in their notice for the second time, only for them to be called into the office by their manager. So definitely they sent in an email and the manager saw the resignation and the manager called them into their office. Now for a lot of people, they would have been wondering what's going on. Why are you calling me into your office? Okay, you've seen the resignation letter. Only for the manager to say, today is your last day. Guys, this person was like, okay, he wasn't even panicking. He just felt, okay, that's fine. But their fight mode immediately activated. And they asked the question, fine, are you paying me out? Because you have to pay me for my notice period. Or should I file for unemployment benefits? Then the manager snapped back and said, no, we do not owe you any unemployment benefits. And then she cut the manager off and said, actually, that's not correct. You owe me unemployment benefits, or you pay me my 2 weeks notice. I had handed in my resignation. I had resigned and I gave you 2 weeks notice. But you, on the other hand, coming to meet me to say today is my last day, it means that you are not giving me any notice. Immediately, the manager kept quiet and admitted that they were going to pay this individual their 2 week notice. So, what that person said is, I have just called 2 weeks of paid vacation. They smiled, they thanked the manager, stayed calm because they just felt fine. We've all now been equal. We both understand, the terms and conditions of our employment. And at that point, I'm thinking this person had the superpowers. They were one step ahead, they had that edge because they understood their employment rights and because they were professional in everything that they did. Anyways, that was not the end of the story. This manager had more coming for this individual. Let's see what the manager did next. The manager then walked them back to their desk, stood over them, and said to them, please pack all your things. And she was like, okay. What's all this drama for? Unknown to the manager, they had packed all of their things earlier. So the first time, initially when they handed in their resignation, they had packed all their belongings out of the office. I'm sure they were just saying, of course, any other day I could just be leaving this office. So they had packed every of their personal items out of the office. That again rattled the manager. Then the manager escorted them out of the building like they were a threat, over their resignation. So for this person, they just felt, over a resignation, why would you have to walk me out of a building over a resignation? Over me choosing my mental health, me choosing myself over a toxic environment. And they just, they said they looked back, wished the manager luck, thanked them, and just went out of that building. Let's just dive into the explanation of what an unemployment benefit means in the United States of America, because this is unemployment law in the United States of America. In America, right, most people who quit their job could be eligible for an unemployment benefit. And how the unemployment benefit trust works is different organizations, pay into that pot to the state. And if you have any staff member that are claiming unemployment benefits, they will get part of that claim. When they get part of that claim as an organization, the impact for you is you don't get any reimbursement from the state. So more like, so for example, like in Nigeria, organizations contributing to a pot that they call the training fund. At the end of the year, if you've trained all your employees, or if you've trained 50% of your employees, you get part of that money. So you can be reimbursed 50% of that training fund that you have paid. So it's more of a levy, but you can get 50% back. So that's the same way that the unemployment trust works in America. But there are cases where people will be eligible to get those claims. One of the cases will be where you have terminated an employee's contract without any cause. So for example, this person hasn't done anything, you haven't paid them their benefits or their notice period or severance pay, like in this case, and you've just asked them to leave. That individual can leave and then go file for an unemployment benefit, which you will be paying at the end of the day. Another way that you can, that an employee can get part of that benefit is when, they were terminated without notice, or they resigned, left the organization due to unsafe condition, harassment, or medical issues, and they've got proof for those medical issues. They left. They can then go and file for an unemployment benefit. So in this case, in this story, this individual was knowledgeable about their rights. So that was why they were able to earn that 2 weeks notice from their employee, right? So I say to people, when you fire employees or when you want to terminate people's contracts, just do it in an honorable way. You don't have to do it as though this person is a threat. You don't have to make them feel less of themselves. Even when there is a misconduct, you have to investigate, follow all the proper processes, and ensure that you're not just doing things out of retaliation, or you're not targeting or discriminating against that individual. So that is just the background. Let's dive into this story and look at some of the lessons that we learned from this individual. I like this story because this is somebody, again, that is aware of their situation. They understood their environment. They knew this is not the right place that I should be. They started, this person, according to this story, we didn't know whether they've gotten another job. They just felt enough was enough. They felt their health was paramount. They felt they were going to put themselves over even the pay they were going to get, and leave when they're not totally burnt out, leave when they still have their sanity in place. So for me, one of the lessons that I learned is know your rights. When it comes to your contract of employment, it's important that you know your rights. Half of the time, when people get their contract, they look at it that it's quite lengthy. We don't read the documents properly. We don't digest the document. We don't even look for the loopholes in the document. We just sign the document, hand over the copy to the employer, and then keep a copy, file it away somewhere in our room, somewhere in our boxes. We don't go back to read it. That's the only way you would know what is included or what is contained in that document. If you read your contract of employment, if you understand your contract of employment, you will know your rights, you will know the responsibilities of all the stakeholders that are involved in it. Because sometimes you ask people, what are the benefits that you have? They don't even know. So when they get their payslip, they're not checking, what was stated in their contract of employment against what has been paid to them. Some people careless, but the truth is, if you want to know your rights, the first point of call is for you to read your contract of employment. That's the only way that you can know your rights. So whenever you want to resign, you know your notice period. What you also know what the organization is required to do if they want to, say, for example, terminate your contract, or if there's a redundancy, or if there is bankruptcy, if there is anything that's going to affect you, you already know what to do. So for me, knowledge is power. And that's the first lesson that I learned from this case. This individual knew the rights, they were knowledgeable. So even in terms of handing their notice, in terms of everything, they were very professional in doing that. When they rescinded on their offer, or when they rescinded on their notice and they wanted to resign, they put in another, resignation letter, which is just very professional. Secondly, professionalism is your shield. I say to people that yes, emotions can be really difficult to contain, especially when you are angered, or especially when you are even triggered. Like in this case, this individual was triggered by the toxicity in the environment. That's first things first. Secondly, they were triggered by the way, the manager just said to them, today is your last day. But in all of that, they were calm. They were professional in what they were doing. That's very important. It's very vital when you are dealing with an individual, whether they are your fellow colleagues, whether they are fellow employees, whether they are your employer, in this case, maybe the manager. You have to be professional. You have to be the bigger person in that picture. You have to, come in and say, you know what? I'm not going to fight over this. I'm not going to shout over this. I will not allow myself to be triggered by this individual. That was why, in this case, it looks like they won, whatever the manager was trying to bring in. They were professional. They had done everything. They had documented things. They had handed in their notice. They had given the notice, required an appropriate notice period. They had even they were even calm when the manager said, today is your last day. They were calm when the manager was walking them out of the building. They were one step ahead of that manager. So that professionalism was their shield. The manager wouldn't have anything against them, wouldn't say, oh, you were shouting. And I say sometimes that even if you break that relationship at that time, or that bridge is burned by your manager, there are times when they would need somebody to do a job that only you can do. You have shown some exceptional professionalism. They will call you back and say, oh, you've got this job, we know that we didn't treat you well. They will take responsibility for their actions, and you guys will move forward. So yes, guys, professionalism is something that we should all work on, we should all work towards, because it's really important. Then thirdly, I say that the best way to build professionalism is to assume that whatever they are doing is not personal. Because I want to think that for an organization to walk somebody out of the building, stand over them, telling them, pick up your things, pick up just your purse, we will email the things, to you, we'll send things over to you. That is who they are. They're not doing it because of you. It's not because there's anything within you, or there's anything that you have done that has warranted it. So subtly, that's not who you are. That's not what you worth. So if don't go lingering with that thought in your mind that, oh, was this all that I was in this company? Was this the way they were going to tell me goodbye? Sometimes people behave, they project who they are to you. So if that manager or whoever walked them out of that building feels threatened by them, it's not their fault that the manager felt threatened by them, not because they have done anything wrong sometimes, but it's just because of who the manager is. They probably feel that, there's something this person will take out of the building, for lack of better words. Sometimes some people walk people out of the building not for personal reasons. They just feel that they are protecting the organization property. That's not the right way to do it, because if somebody wants to take intellectual properties out of an organization, they would have done it earlier. It's not on the last day that they are leaving that they're going to be picking a file, because they know they'll be watched, they know they'll be monitored, so they wouldn't want to do that. So I think that's not the right way to do it. But the best thing really to be able to be calm in situations like that, to be able to be professional, is just to assume that, this is who they are. It doesn't tell anything about me. It doesn't say my what. It doesn't, this is not me. It's not a reflection of me. This person is just reflecting who they are too. So it's not my what. That for me is the best way to go about looking at it, so that you are not feeling less of yourself, or you don't leave that building and at the end of the day you have that trauma, you've got that thing hanging and lingering on you, that everywhere you go to you just feel like you're not really worth it. You're less of a human, or you're less of yourself because of the way somebody else had treated you. So that way, those are the lessons that I have learned. I would like to know the lessons that you have learned from this story. It will be so interesting to hear from different people what you've been through. Have you ever been in a toxic environment? Have you ever been walked out of a building as though you're a criminal? I've never been walked out of a building before, but there are times that I've worked in toxic environments, and honestly, every day for me felt like that would be my last day. So I know that kind of a feeling of enough is enough. I know that kind of a feeling of handing in your notice or your resignation even without getting a job. So I'd like to hear from you how you've done yours in the past, or if you know somebody else that was really great, professional, legendary in the way that they handled that situation. I would like to hear your comments. Drop them below so that we'd hear all of those things that you have done. So for me, if you work in a toxic workplace, plan your exit strategically. It's really important. If you can, start removing your personal items ahead of time, because you just know that there are things that they might do that would make you feel really, really bad, and you don't want to feel bad. You don't want your emotions to take over you. Document things as much as you can, because that's the only defense that you have to be able to fight them in future if you want to. And sometimes when people even know that you are documenting things, they are very worried, because they know that you are very smart. So they would try to do things the right way, do things professionally, because when you exit, you might see some of these people, in the field, in the industry. You can even come back to that workplace. So you don't want a situation whereby you say, I will never go back to that workplace. Guy, it's all about the pay, isn't it? It's value. You bring value to the table, you get paid. So you can still go back to an organization. So that's why professionalism is very important, that you show that every time that you have any encounter, or you have any event or an incident in your workplace. Don't forget to subscribe if you found this video really helpful. Click the notification bell if you want to get more HR advice, to help you survive and thrive in today's workplace. It's a crazy world, trust me. And the workplace is really getting challenging. So if you want to get those advice, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, click the notification bell, and you will be notified anytime we post new videos. I will bring in more stories as I come across them online. We'll dissect it together, we'll advise, we'll learn from it together. Until we meet in our next video, bye.